This is a very good question about the Southern strategy. The Southern strategy as described and as popularly understood is a total and complete fiction. And the proof of it is very simple. Ask yourself this question. Richard Nixon is alleged to have made racist appeals to Southern Democrats to become Republicans. I defy you to give me a single public example. Richard Nixon in private, and we know this from the Watergate tapes, would mutter all kinds. He was a paranoid man who had all kinds of prejudices and hatreds. I don't deny that for a minute. That was the private Nixon. But in order to show a Southern strategy, it's not enough to show that Nixon is muttering in private. You have to show that if he's going to make racist appeals to Southern whites to vote for the Republican Party, you have to produce those. And no one has ever produced a single one. So the point is, this Southern strategy has been alleged later. And in fact, it's so effective that a dumb chairman of the Republican National Committee was apologizing for the Southern strategy, even though there was no Southern strategy of the kind described. Now, having said that, Nixon did have a strategy. What was his strategy? Nixon's strategy was ultimately to use blacks in his favor against the racist Democrats. Proof, Nixon was the first person to implement affirmative action. Where did he do it? In Philadelphia. How did he do it? He went to the racist unions, all white, which did not admit blacks, and he basically said, if you don't admit blacks, I'm cutting off federal contracts from you. And the white racist unions were forced to admit blacks, and that's the first actual case of affirmative action in the United States implemented by one Richard Milhouse Nixon. This was his actual strategy, pro-black, against the racist Democrats. Now, Lyndon B. Johnson had a Southern strategy, and that was a more complicated matter. How do you keep blacks who have traditionally voted Republican in the Democratic Party? LBJ could see that the Southerners were moving in the Republican camp, not because of racism, because of the 60s. The anti-war movement, patriotism, a lot of issues were in play. And LBJ's point was, we need the blacks. If we can't keep the blacks, the Democratic Party is not viable in the South. He had a Southern strategy. So, bottom line, it's a complex story. But this whole idea that the Republicans made racist appeals, check it out for yourself. You have to locate those appeals. If you can't find those appeals, it's pure fiction to say appeals were made, although I don't have any examples. Because how else to tell people to vote, hey, racists, come vote Republican? If you can't find that, you don't have a case. And there is no case.